album we're reviewing is Satellite, obviously by P.O.D. It was their third album. It was coming after their Tales from the South Town, which was a pretty big album. Or sorry, the Fundamental Elements of South Town. Yeah. My apologies.
I would have listened to that. I think I probably would have enjoyed that one more, by the way, because I do. That South Town song kind of goes, you know?
Yeah.
We're in the South Town because you know that kid don't play. That's kind of cool, right?
Exactly. Yep. So
will I live another day? I like that part because that sounds like 90s rap.
Yeah, you're right. So I should say Satellite is their fourth album. So there's the Fundamental Elements of Southtown. There's one called Brown, and there's one called Snuff the Punk. So pretty cool.
God, I hate these fucking guys so much.
Yeah, it's not.
First of all,
great.
Brown is so funny.
Brown, it's just called Brown.
I identify Christianity with the color brown, like heavily. Brown and orange are the two colors I think of when I think about Christianity, which is probably fucking weird or something, but I always get brown and orange energy from it. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that they named it Brown. Now, I wonder if it was, were they Christian on the first album that they did?
Well, see, I don't know, but I will say that the final track on their first album, the track title is "Abortion is Murder."
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to say I'm going to go with yes. That's going to be my answer for that one. There's also a track on that album called "Let the Music Do the Talking." There's also a song called "Three in the Power of One," which, you know, the Holy Trinity. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and say they were Christian on that one. Let's take a look at Brown here. Let's see some of these, song titles. Yeah, see, this one doesn't seem as Christian, although I'm going to tell you, Brian, they've got two track titles on here that I know just from knowing you that you're going to hate. Okay.
Oh, I got to hear these. So, okay.
Track 9 is called Funk Jam.
Ew, oh my God. Can you imagine writing that down on a fucking CD sleeve? Like, hey, we're calling this one Funk Jam.
Yeah. And it's 3 minutes and 14 seconds long.
That's not a jam.
No,
that's not even a fucking jam.
They cut it short. And then they have a song called Preach, which is track 10. And then track 11 is called Reggae Jam.
Oh, fuck, dude. Fuck. That album probably sucks. Oh my God. Here's the thing about me that is a little bit, I like all sorts of music. I mean, I'm a music guy. I like country music, new metal. I like, regular metal. I even like a lot of classic rock. I do not like reggae music. I can't do it with reggae music. I just never.
No, me neither.
I can't do the we be jamming type stuff. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't feel that way. It doesn't connect with me.
You don't feel you don't feel the jam.
No, I don't feel jaw when I listen to that music.
Well, so I just
Funk Jam is maybe the worst thing. That's the worst title. I'm gonna get a shirt that says Funk Jam on it now.
So they also did a live album. This is before their big hits came out. They did a live album in '97 after Brown, and it has, I guess, to complete the trilogy, track 5 is called Punk Reggae Jam.
Oh God! Oh my God! The fucking Clash. That's the Clash. Yeah. They did a Clash cover.
Yeah, exactly. It was London Calling, but they couldn't clear the rights. And then
Reggae Jam.
It also had a song called 1-800-HIT-HOME. And the
that's about Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. So the notes on the Wikipedia page say that 1-800-HIT-HOME is not actually a song, but a message from Noah Bernardo Sr., who's the father of Wov Bernardo, who's the guitar player. And it has information about believing in and receiving Christ. So
wow. You know what I think about Christian bands? is that like a lot, well, they mostly suck, and that a lot of them, it is like a sure thing for them, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like if you, new metal was so fucking popular at that time, right? Like it was everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
And like all that P.O.D had to do was talk about God like he's a mean girlfriend, and they were gonna get signed and they were gonna make money because Christian people just buy that shit up, you know.
100%.
Now the problem with that is your audience. Like you got to stand on stage and you got to look out at the people that listen to your shit, you know. And that's not who I want to look out at when I'm doing my shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think too, like, I know that some people wrote in when we said we were doing P.O.D. They tweeted at us about how like that was the only new metal band they were allowed to listen to, right? Like depending on who you were raised by, it's like, you know, you couldn't listen to albums with parental advisory stickers on the cover, or albums that were called Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water, you know, like.
Well, I don't see why that. I mean, that seems like an innocent enough thing to say.
but yeah, so I know that for a lot of people, yeah, it's not only that you get that kind of, you know, you get all of those additional sales because at this time you're being sold in Christian bookstores and music shops, which are like a big thing. But you're also getting that kind of that extra boost from those people, and from the people who like wanted to listen to new metal so bad and would hear Freak on a Leash on Much Music or on the radio or something and be like, oh, I wish there was something like this for me or that I could listen to.
I had a crush on this girl when I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. I was just in love with her. Right. And right behind the Chuck E. Cheese, there was a Christian Armory, which is a huge Christian bookstore. I used to go over there with her all the time and just like go look through stuff and be like, yeah, I could probably be Christian, you know,
like she was going in there seriously. And you were just like, yeah.
I would just be, I can look into this. I mean, you know, what's the big deal? It's Jesus. I love the guy.
I think every like non-God person commits lust for a Christian woman at some point in their life. I feel like that's just like a rite of passage for like straight white men who are just like,
yeah,
you're like, every white man's past has at least one Christian girl that either they thought they could change or they did change, or they thought that they could change for them. Like, oh yeah, I've had sex with like 15 women already in my life, but like this is the girl. Like I'll wait till marriage though after this. Like it's fine. Like it's fine. I've had a bunch of like sex. I've had sex with girls I met that day, but like, you know, but I will wait years and years for this. Like Jesus had some good ideas, I think, actually.
But yeah, for me it was like we would just hang out all day at work. And you know, when I think about this kind of stuff now, it's like she probably also like had a crush on me, but I was terrified of her, you know?
Or because she was terrified of you. Like she was like, oh, he's the heathen man. Like, what am I supposed to do? You know, I like this guy that I work with, but like, I know that he like Satan. I've heard him listen to that Korn record in his car when he's coming to work.
Well, on top of that, like I said that I liked Satan at the time. Like I was very, very in to like be saying I was a devil worshiper.
There were no blurred lines. I was telling her that I loved Satan.
So I've told this a few times, but when I was growing up, there were these woods by my house, and all the parents would be like, hey, don't go out in them woods because there's Satan worshipers out there doing fucking sacrifices and stuff. And when I was 16 years old, I realized that was me. Like I'm
You're like, that sounds cool as hell. You're the guy that the parents are saying is out in the woods. You know that Bryan guy? He's out there.
That happened a few times. There's this guy, Nate, that I hung out with. He went to almost like every concert with me too. And he was coming to hang out at my house with me. And his mom told him before he got over there, she was like, hey, you know, a lot of crazy stuff happening on that side of the neighborhood. And he was like, don't worry about me. And it was us. That the crazy stuff was me and my friends doing vandalism and shit like that.
Oh, my God. I love that.
But like, I saw P.O.D. live.
Oh, I bet you did.
I've seen them all, right?
Yeah.
You know,
that's the thing,
odd.
right? If you go and see, if you were because P.O.D. played Ozfest, right?
No.
Oh, right, because Ozfest
Not
was
that I
Devil.
went to.
No, Ozfest was for the Devil.
They might have.
No, I think they did
you.
because one of the articles that I read was talking about how they played Ozfest, and there's like a bunch of like heathen bands. Yes. So it was like in a Guitar One interview, P.O.D. talks about their Christianity, and the interviewer says P.O.D. is known for its religious beliefs, and Ozfest can easily be viewed as a debauchery, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Is there a conflict of interest? And then Marcos Curiel said, yeah, but we're not necessarily a Christian band. We are, to an extent, a rock band that loves God, and we're not ashamed of that.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to more of that stuff later.
A rock band that loves God.
We're just a rock band that loves God, baby.
I'm looking at the 20. I'm trying to find P.O.D. on the Ozfest thing, but I believe you that they.
I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I remember seeing it, but so this album, P.O.D.'s Satellite, their fourth studio album, their second major label release, came out on September 11th, 2001.
Cool day. I remember
very
that
cool
day.
It debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200, selling 133,000 copies in its first week. It spent 5 consecutive weeks in the top 10 of the Billboard 200, and it went on to sell 3 million copies in the U.S. and over 7 million worldwide.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, I had a little contest for you, John.
Oh, I love a contest.
Before we move on.
Yes.
I'm going to give you 3 guesses.
Okay.
And I don't think you're going to get it. Who do you think P.O.D. was opening for that I saw them with? You probably, I'm telling you now, it's out of the box. Okay.
Is it a band that we've talked about on the show before?
We haven't talked about them.
I just mean, like, have we mentioned them on the show? Okay.
Nope. And I don't talk about them very much anywhere, really. But it is a band that I was a fan of. They were headlining, and I was there for them.
Okay. And P.O.D. opened.
And it's odd. Let me just say, like, that this is an odd band for them to open for.
Okay. That's interesting. Static X?
Nope.
Okay, you said odd band for some reason that made me think of Primus.
You got it. Holy shit. Oh my God. I'm fucking blown away right now. It was fucking Primus. I saw them open for Primus.
That is such a weird combination of bands.
It is. So
I'm just imagining like P.O.D. coming out and they're like, without jaw, I'm the messenger. And then it's like, what a weird combination. I love that.
So the weirdest fucking thing, there were P.O.D. fans there.
Of course, yeah, because those are 2 bands that are so different that you would have people just going for P.O.D., right? Like it's not a bill that makes sense where you'd be like, oh, okay, they probably also like Primus. Like it seems like people who were there for Primus would not like P.O.D. and people who were there for P.O.D. would not like Primus.
I know that was the case. That's why I found it so weird. Me and my friends were yelling satanic stuff at P.O.D. the whole time they were on stage and pretending to be Jesus on the cross, like doing like a really funny like arms out and legs crossed thing in the pit.
Oh my God. That must have happened to P.O.D. all the time though, right? Like it would have had to.
At a Primus, at Ozfest or a Primus concert? Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy. Okay, well, let's talk about, before we get into talking about the album, we always talk about our own personal history with P.O.D. So what was you've already started talking about it a little bit, but what was your, like when this came out, all that, what was your kind of read on P.O.D.? What was your history with them?
Southtown, I did hear right away. It got MTV airplay when it was out because everything was really popping off with that song.
Yeah, I remember that. And that was like the height of nu metal too, right? Like that came out in 99. So you're like, a year removed from Follow the Leader. Significant Other came out in 99. So like you got a lot of like new metal's dominating MTV at this time.
And it was just they were just signing every one of these bands and putting them on TV. Like it was basically wall to wall new metal and boy bands on that channel at the time, which is kind of like boy bands and boy bands in a way when you think about it.
Well, yeah, wasn't it? Who was it that said that? Oh yeah, Corey Taylor from Slipknot last episode was saying that like new metal was just boy bands.
Boy bands for men.
Yeah.
Is all that it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't wrong.
So
really.
I saw that the premise show was before Satellite came out. So I saw that. But here's the thing with me is if I find out something is Christian, I just don't like it. There is no fucking possible way once I find out they're singing about Jesus that I'm going to get into it. I know it's unfair. And I also know that there are good Christian metal bands out there. I just can't. It doesn't appeal to anything about me as a person.
Right. No, that makes sense to me. I feel like it is. I noticed when I listened to this album that it is distracting. It's hard to like there are good songs, but it's like then when you find out they're Christian, like if you didn't know they were Christian, then you found out they were, you'd be like, okay, so this song is more about that, and then you're like, okay,
that's a good
like,
point.
It's not, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, so I think it is that thing where it becomes distracting. I think when like I kind of, I listened to lots of bands over the course of my life where I don't really know what they're talking about. Like I don't really know what the lyrics are. I mean, Bush, Glassjaw.
You don't know what the Bush
Deftones
songs are about, man? They're all about ladies, really.
I know, but like Swallowed. What's that about? No one knows.
Swallowed.
Yeah, I love Bush. Great band, but
this is really funny that you bring up Bush. I can say this. I love to take it off the album, really. You bring up Bush. I tried to buy tickets to see Bush in concert, but it sold out before I got paid for my McDonald's job. And then like a year later, I tried to be like, Bush fucking sucks, man. They're not heavy enough. And my friend was just like, dude, you tried to buy tickets to see Bush like 6 months or a year ago, and used to hold it over my head. And it was like really embarrassing to like Bush in my friend group.
I could see how it would be embarrassing, but like I was an age where Bush was like popular. Like I can remember being at parties and people would put Swallowed on.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, when I was in that stupid rock band for just a small period of time, we did a heavy metal version of Glycerine.
Oh, of course. Like what band didn't do a cut like, this song's cool, but like it's pretty soft.
But what I was saying before it cut out was that like new metal really was like a chance for me to go to a concert and get like emotions out. You know what I mean? And maybe I didn't have the same problems that Jonathan Davis had, but my problems were transferable to like a Jonathan Davis. I could take his problems and really identify with those problems and get the anger out of me in these like mosh pits. I just really wanted to have like this outpouring of emotion in a room full of people, and I don't feel like that's even possible with P.O.D. if you don't believe in God,
Well, and I think too, like, I mean, most of the songs are fairly uplifting. So it's like if you were trying to get anger out, it's like, I don't think a lot of people were getting in the pit and being like, I feel so alive. And you're like that's not, it kind of would actually remind me of like Incubus. Like, I feel like it's like kind of the same thing. It's like, especially like once Incubus got into the kind of Morning View type era where it's like, yeah, there's like pits at Incubus, but it's not, it's more just like a joyous occasion than a like, I'm going to hurt this stranger.
Make Yourself was really when that started to happen.
Yes, true. Yeah, with Drive and Stellar and all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. But
and like they toured with their snobby friends, the Deftones, off of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see that tour.
I saw it
tomorrow.
I saw it, baby.
Deftones and Incubus. That's sick as shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, I think that's it, right? It's like, I think, but I will say, like, in the way that it wouldn't have been appealing to you and I, it would have been appealing to like the kids who couldn't listen to nu metal otherwise, you know, or were like to me, you know, probably kids were graduating from bands like Jars of Clay and DC Talk and Audio Adrenaline. And that's a deep
Audio Adrenaline.
That's a deep cut for our listeners who were / are Christian. I guarantee you we're going to get like 3 tweets being like, I can't believe you brought up Audio Adrenaline. But they were like,
can I bring one up? Flyleaf.
Oh, yeah. Flyleaf is a good one, too.
Skillet, I think, is one.
Yeah. Oh, I don't even know anymore.
It's either Skillet or Starshine is one of them. One of those just bands. But like.
Or both. It could be both. I mean, you know, but that's it. So, like, I think if you were a kid who was like listening to that kind of Jars of Clay, DC Talk, like all kind of alternative Christian, and you wanted something heavier, and then P.O.D. came along, and then you're like, oh, awesome. Like now I have a heavy band that I can listen to and I find something in this. But yeah, I mean, I was a pretty happy kid. So like, I thought P.O.D. was pretty cool. I have to be honest. Like when Alive came out, like I really liked Alive. I thought it was cool. Sonny's like a interesting looking dude, cool dude with the dreads and stuff. Like I always thought they reminded me of Deftones in a way. Like, I mean, they're both Deftones are from Sacramento, but P.O.D. being from San Diego, they both had that kind of California, Mexican American, cool skater vibe that like was just so far removed from what I was, but where I was like, oh, these guys are fucking cool, you know, in a way that I never was. So to me, P.O.D., I thought like, to me, Alive was like a banger, and then Boom had that funny video where they play ping pong in the video, and I thought that was dope. And so
such a kid.
Oh, totally. I was like
tiny little kid. I hated that.
When this came out.
I was mad at it.
Yeah, when this came out, I was like 16. You know, I'm like, hell yeah. So I remember like I quite liked this album. I thought this was pretty damn good when it came out. I still think Alive goes pretty good, and Satellite, the title track for me goes in. Still, I still really like it, but yeah, I do remember finding out P.O.D. was Christian and not believing it. Like I remember, I don't like who, like I don't even know who would have told me. You know, like I didn't have that many friends that listen to nu metal, but I feel like, you know, someone just told me, "Hey, P.O.D.'s Christian," you know, or whatever, and I was like, "No, they're not. Come on, they're a nu metal band. They're not." You know, this is before the days of like Wikipedia where you could just look that up, so it didn't seem immediately obvious. But then you start to think like, "Oh, I feel so alive for the very first time. I can't deny you. I feel so, oh, that's about Jesus. That's just, okay. He's just talking about finding God. All right. Cool.
If it was about a girl or something like that, I would have been really into it. You know what I mean?
Of course. You saw this girl for the first time. She took you to the Christian Armory. You're like, I love this girl.
I'm trying to think if I guess like country music and sometimes rap music is can be pretty uplifting, or it's like about having parties. But to tell you the truth, the stuff I listen to is like the sad honky tonk stuff anyway. Like, right. So there's that. Like, I don't think I listen to anything uplifting. I don't think I have that thing in my mind where something, because I smelled this right away with P.O.D. I was like, there's fucking just something like 1/4 inch off with these guys.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think I thought they were Christian, but I think like it was the first time I realized that maybe we were hitting like a saturation, an oversaturation point was when they started to like chart pretty big on TRL and stuff. It was kind of like, this is good, you know? And I think this was also a period of time where I was sort of closing the door on any new metal bands, because I think that's something people go through with any kind of music they listen to when they're young, it's not that you stop liking the kind of music. It's just that like you have the stuff that you got into. And at some point, if it gets very popular and it gets very mainstream, there's like a cutoff point where you're like, nobody that comes after this is good. And that's how I kind of was at this time of my, I was like 22.
Right.
So like, it was just kind of like, so, you know.
Well, and I think for you, right, like you're coming from a different, you know, I mean, Korn self-titled comes out in 94. So you're 7 years into like nu metal being your favorite type of music that you're listening to all the time. Like for me, I think I was probably still pretty closely tied to like 90s alternative. You know, like bands like Bush, but even like lighter bands like Gin Blossoms and Collective Soul and like, you know, bands like that.
Collective Soul's a Christian band, dude. What?
Well, I know, but I'm just saying like that was the kind of, you know, I was like 2 years removed from just liking whatever was on like alt rock radio, you know, all the one hit wonders of that time period, you know, your Harvey Dangers and your Gin Blossoms and your Fastballs and your you know, bands like that where it was like, oh, okay, this is the New Radicals, shit like that, where it was like, oh, these are all the songs I like. P.O.D. was kind of like, oh, not that far removed. I'm only 2 years removed from listening to all that stuff still. So to me, it was like, oh, okay, that like I can see the logical progression. And I think too, P.O.D. is also kind of in that Linkin Park vein where we talked about, where like it makes sense that when you have bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit that are really heavy, that are like dominating the charts, and Korn in particular like is not only a heavy band but heavy subject matter. Like Limp Bizkit wasn't really heavy subject matter, it was just Fred talking about sex. But like Korn was really heavy, Limp Bizkit was really heavy music, so it made sense that given how popular that was, there would be bands that would be doing like a sanitized or like more alternative sounding version of that. So I think that that's where, you know, you get the branch off from Korn and Limp Bizkit, where you get the kind of scarier nu metal bands like Mudvayne and Slipknot and, you know, bands that were in masks and doing really speed metal mixed with nu metal. And then it makes sense that the other fork would be your, like, you know, your Linkin Parks and your P.O.Ds and your Evanescences and, you know, bands like that. I mean, Evanescence was later, but just that kind of like, yeah, we're doing nu metal, but like we're making it so that like a 10-year-old would like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense that I wouldn't like that. I was probably also moving towards like lighter stuff. That's the difference here. I didn't come to this from like lighter stuff. I came to this from like Bone Thugs and Harmony. I was really into like NWA, Eazy-E, the Ghetto Boys. Like I was basically listening to like gangster rap. And then I went right into this nu metal phase where there wasn't like a time where I was listening to something softer, and I was very close-minded to basically anything they played on the radio. It's
For
like,
sure.
Once it started getting played on the radio, I was like, nope, this isn't good.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense to me. I will share this one article I found. Sonny has some hilarious quotes about nu metal in particular. So it's funny that we're kind of talking about this, because he says, and this interview is from Blabbermouth in 2019. So this is like a retrospective interview.
Who was interviewing P.O.D. in 2019?
Well, Blabbermouth.
Well, you know the name, yeah.
Yeah. So it's on being labeled as a nu metal band. Sonny says, before any of these titles were made up, we were still doing stuff independently. We've been called everything. 27 years ago, we weren't called nu metal. People were still trying to figure out what we sounded like. Rap metal, rapcore. It was like, you guys sound like Body Count or Suicidal Tendencies, which maybe their Brown sounded like that, but Satellite does not sound like either of those things. Then when people heard Rage Against the Machine, it was like, oh, you guys kind of sound like Rage. And then Limp Bizkit got popular, and it was like, oh, you sound like Limp Bizkit. But little do people know, we were around before those bands. It was just more of a mainstream thing, but I don't care what you call us. We just like making music. And then it gets even funnier when they ask whether he thinks nu metal is about to undergo a resurgence. I hope so. I hope it's coming back. I don't think its stint lasted long enough. I think it got real saturated. I honestly believe there were only 2, 3, maybe 4 bands doing it that was authentic, that was really from the streets, or that they were from the hip hop culture as well as the rock and metal culture. But once it got trendy and started to become MTV and everything like that, and everybody started switching over, it got so oversaturated it didn't seem original anymore. And then he's like, I think that was the end of an era where music still had something there. It was still real, whereas a lot of music today, it all kind of sounds the same and fits a format. There's no life to it. I think us and Korn and Deftones, I think that was an end of an era when we really came out and we were ourselves and we just made music and everybody still sounded different. Now everybody sounds the same. And I love the idea that Sonny thinks that the holy trinity of new metal bands are Korn, Deftones, and P.O.D.
It is so funny to think that like they're not like, well, I'm going to do this right now. Korn, Deftones, Limp Bizkit, Cold Chamber. Well, no. Incubus, maybe, I think, is in there. Cold Chamber.
I mean, I think Rage
Slipknot.
I think Rage is new metal. You don't, but I do.
Well, I just don't want to get yelled at.
That's fair, but I think Rage is in that category. I think you could put System in that category too.
Slipknot is in there. For sure. I mean, there's so many bands before you get to P.O.D.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the point, right? It's like, I get what he's saying, that like they started doing it in 94, like right around the same time that Korn was doing it. Like, I understand that you're trying to say like, hey, we were doing it before all these bands and we're one of the original bands. Like, okay, fine. But also, first of all, you didn't have a memorable album or song until 99. Like, the difference is people are still listening to Korn's self-titled album. No one's listening to Snuff the Punk by P.O.D. or whatever the fuck it was called. No one's listening to Funk Jam.
The Reggae Jam actually is the one I would be listening to. But I guess like the thing about it is you kind of have to see yourself there if you're playing arenas and stuff like that. I mean, your world can look really big from the inside. You know what I mean?
And I mean, it sold 7 million copies. So like, I mean, they were a fucking huge band.
Yeah, I just don't think they like, oh, okay, I'll say this. I don't think they influenced anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's other bands coming out that are like, I heard P.O.D. and I had to get my music out there and this is what it sounds like.
I think that's a really good way of putting it, because I think that I think like what he's saying is like the idea that Korn and Deftones and P.O.D. were the originators of new metal. Like, yeah, I don't think you're ever going to see an interview with a big new metal band who was like, oh, yeah, we just got this band P.O.D. We heard this band P.O.D. We heard this Brown album. We got it from Christian Armory. And then we were like, hey, we're going to make music like this. Like, no one ever said that. No one ever said that. So like, I think that that's a really good point. I think that that's where his argument kind of falls apart. That like, and even those bands, I remember for me growing up, like new metal was such a the coolest thing to me was when a new metal band I liked another new metal band. Like when you would see like Fred Durst wearing a Deftones shirt, you're like, this is the cool, like that's so cool. Like Fred likes Deftones, I like Deftones, I like Fred. This is cool, And like obviously All in the Family is a terrible song, but like just the idea of Korn and Limp Bizkit like getting together to do a song was just like, this is so fucking cool. Like these are the bands I love and they're doing a song together, like, oh my God. And no one was doing that with P.O.D. You were never like Jonathan Davis wasn't doing an interview on MTV wearing a P.O.D. shirt. Like that just wasn't happening.
They didn't do any songs together either.
No,
there were no collaborations. I don't know who P.O.D. went on tour with. I think that's something to like. I'm gonna look that up. But like, I guess I like don't know. P.O.D. to me is more like Seether or Saliva. They're in that kind of camp. Right?
Yeah.
Which Saliva, it's possible that they were inspired by P.O.D. because I kind of feel like Click Click Boom is a lot like Here Comes the Boom. but I'm letting them both slide. It's basically the same song. Click, click, boom. Here comes the boom. I'm going to just make a fucking mix of just those two choruses over and over again.
Yeah, as you should. Yeah. I mean, there's no real, I'm looking at the P.O.D. like Wikipedia. There's not really a whole lot that's talking about their tours. But it's so weird. There is
okay.
Go ahead.
I got who they are with now.
Okay.
P.O.D. It looks like they're headlining and Lit and Alien Ant Farm.
Of course.
Which makes sense. Alien Ant Farm actually makes a lot of fucking sense.
Yeah.
You know? I don't think that's like out of their thing. And Lit, you know, they got a couple good songs. They've couple songs.
Yeah, they have songs. They've written songs, and as far as I know, they play them sometimes. No, you're right. And like this one says in 2008, they did a Music as a Weapon tour with Alter Bridge and Disturbed. So you know, that sounds about right too. But yeah, like as far as I know, P.O.D. was never going out with like Korn or Deftones or Limp Bizkit or any of those.
I mean, here's the deal though. I pick people to tour with that I think are going to be cool and fun to hang out with on tour.
Yeah, of course.
You know? Yeah. So
what are we talking about?
Think,
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, so what are we talking about? Like, obviously, no band is taking P.O.D. out. He's like, yeah. So we thought we're gonna start our set list with "Abortion is Murder," and then we'll just probably work our way into punk reggae jam, and then "Youth of the Nation." We'll play that. We'll get that one in there, and it's so fucked, man.
It's also funny to think like he obviously doesn't like Limp Bizkit, right? That's actually what that whole there's three of us and we're doing it and everything else was kind of a ripoff. Is like he doesn't like Limp Bizkit. And that is two bands I couldn't imagine on the road together. And again, anybody who's watched any of the Korn videos, like they're fucking crazy on tour. I don't think they are anymore.
Oh yeah, but certainly back in the day, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Jonathan Davis has been to rehab how many times for drinking, right? Like,
yeah, and you don't want somebody on a fucking road with you that's going to be like, "Hey, you think you're using too many drugs or something like that?" It's like, no. We're not having a fucking intervention now when I'm doing all the drugs.
Well, one of the interviews I read was like it was a combo interview with P.O.D. and Sonny Morgan from Seether, or Sean Morgan. What the fuck is his name?
I think no, never mind. I thought it was Josie Scott, you said.
No, Josie Scott Saliva. Seether is
he's Christian.
Seether is, I think, what's his name here? Sean Morgan, sorry.
Okay.
So, and it was a dual interview, and basically like Sonny was like kind of trying to convert him in the interview. Like he was not trying to convert, but he was just kind of like, yeah, you know, like Sean and I have gotten to know each other on this tour or whatever. And I guess his brother died. Sean Morgan's brother died. So he was talking about how he was like going through a really tough time. And Sonny was like trying to help him through it with like God, you know? And it was kind of like, oh man, it was not great. It was kind of ugly. And Sonny admits, like in some of these interviews, like he talks about like there's this other interview. So I thought it was going to be fun to kind of look at articles from this time period because they are Christian, that we could actually look at like Christian magazines to see like what they say. So this is from 2006, an interview with Sonny, and let me just find it here because he was talking about how he like literally like talks to bands about it, and it's just like you wouldn't take. Oh yeah, so the magazine asks, have you guys ever been hassled for your faith by other bands? And he says, never, not once. I don't know anybody who doesn't love the guys in P.O.D. We're just four guys from the neighborhood. I think they're more afraid of us because their experiences with Christianity have turned them off. But don't compare me to that. I'm Sonny from San Diego. I'll cook for you. I'll barbecue. You can hang out with my friends, my family. Just be real with me. I don't care. I'll meet you on a human level. Then, when the time is right, I'm going to share. But I'm not going to beat anyone over the head. And it's like, so you're going to bring me over to your house and barbecue for me, but it's under the pretense that like at some point in the evening you're going to be like, hey man, you check out God though.
I'm gonna give you a picture of what an evening on tour with P.O.D. is right now, because I know this, because I've been in this situation. You're fucking having fun. He'll like get you your beer. You know what I mean? Where he's like, hey, I'm going in to get a Sprite or whatever I drink. And you want me to grab you a beer? Yeah. And he's like, oh, you really love smoking that weed. Oh, you love, he's like kind of hanging out and he's like commenting on what drugs you're doing or what you're up to. And then a little later on, you're a little fucked up. And you're like, let's fucking chop it up, man, about religion. And then he is telling you from the bottom of his heart about Jesus. And you're just sitting there going like, yeah, man, that's cool. Okay. Let's,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you're so hot. You're high and you're like, oh, yeah, God sounds crazy, man.
That's exactly. Yes. Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna think about this tomorrow. For sure.
And that's like, and I know, like in my experience, like that would work, right? Like Sonny would be like, hell yeah, I think I got through to Bryan last night. Like he was on Kratom, I think he called it, and some edibles. But like, I think, we had a really meaningful conversation. And then you talk to Sonny the next day and he's like, hey, that was a cool talk we had last night. And you're like, yeah, what? We talked?
Fun.
And he's like, shit, man.
You said this would be my fucking bad luck. It would be like, you said you might go to the church with me. Like last night you were saying you go, next Sunday we're on the road together. Well, you said we'll go to the hip hop one. We'll go to the cool church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll go to the heavy metal church.
We'll go to the church of P.O.D. Everything is payable on death.
I have there's been a few times where I've been stuck in like kind of a weird thing. And then, they're not super, like they want to have a one way sort of thing because they're not super tolerant when you say like, oh, like a lot of times it goes like this. I don't believe in it. Maybe it's probably my fault. I don't believe in it. I try to put all the onus on myself and like not try to be a dick about it. And a lot of times they're like, no, but it is about you. You know what I mean? Jesus, he died for you. And like, no matter what you do. And they'll also often say, I don't believe in religion. I believe in God.
Right, of course. Yeah, religion is a word that's made up by people to make you think that God is bad, but God is good.
Well, is Sonny I think like there's so much I want to know kind of about what kind of Christian he is, because it sounds like a libertarian sort.
He says he's all about it's all because of his mother. So I guess he wasn't super religious and his mother was. And then she passed away when he was 18 from leukemia. She was 48. And he said that converted him when she passed away, that he saw God in her eyes. Like it's in this article. The first question is, Sonny, I know you were close to your mother. What did she pass on to you? And he said, she passed on the importance of family, the importance of a woman who loves God, a woman who serves God with her faith. She instilled a lot of old school ways and an appreciation for life altogether. I've read that you saw God in her eyes before she passed. Through all the confusion and the personal hurt, what was going on in her condition, I saw a peace and a trust in her eyes. It was calming in the middle of the storm. I saw that she wasn't worried or scared about what would happen to her. She had faith that God would take care of her and look out for the family. And then so that's like, it seems like he wasn't necessarily super religious, but then lost his mom and was like, okay, I'm religious now. And this is like getting me through it,
Yeah, man. I mean, that's one way to go about. I mean, I don't know what would have to happen for me to be in that situation, but I do think like they seem like nice enough guys. That I'm still like back on that Korn Deftones P.O.D. thing. That's a direct shot at Limp Bizkit, I think. I feel, and Slipknot, I think. Those four bands, you know?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, he talks about it, like he said in this article. It says Billy Bob Thornton told me that being famous is like always being on trial. And I mean, in his case, it's because he's on trial. But do you ever feel that way? And Sonny says, I'm nowhere near as famous as that. The only way I can relate is that P.O.D. is known for their beliefs, their faith. In that case, people put you on trial. It's weird. You tell people, I'm a sinner, I'm forgiven, I believe in Jesus who forgave me. You need a savior because you've been wrong all your life and they expect you not to make mistakes anymore. It's like, wait a minute, that's why I am a Christian, because I do make mistakes and I need direction.
God damn. I mean, yeah. I mean, he figured out how to get through and not get in trouble and just get to do his music. You know what I mean? That's what he figured out how to do. And hey, good for him. I can't do it. I will never have inner peace. I promise to everybody that there's no fucking possible way I'm going to get inner peace all of a sudden and become like nice or not. Right. I am nice, but not like I'm not going to clean it up ever.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You just are what you are.
Yeah. And I don't know. It like is a positive message for people. It feels like kind of like when somebody gets out of rehab and that's when I let people be as religious as they want. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah. You got to
rehab. I'll kind of talk to them and be like, yeah, man, I'm glad Jesus did that for you. That's cool.
Yeah, of course. You can't begrudge someone for getting clean, but you're going to hate it after you hear this one. He says,
okay.
The question is, he's talking about his two daughters. So at the time of the interview, he says his oldest is 5 and his youngest is 17 months. And he's got two girls. And he says, and he's talking about how old they're getting. And then the magazine asks, are you going to be the nightmare dad when she starts dating? And he says, the guy's going to have to face me and 50 other tatted uncles. I'll probably be making my own bullets. My goal is to treat my daughters like the princesses that they are, to treat them so good that they're going to have to search long and hard to find someone as good as daddy.
Gross.
Yeah,
that's fucking gross. You know what's funny about that?
That's not good, man. That's not good at all.
So gross. Me and my daughter were having a conversation today. She's out of school for 3 weeks now, so and her friends can't really hang out. I mean, they might, but me and her, so she's like hanging with me and we're kind of bullshitting. And I said something, we were joking around. She was like, oh, you're just a great guy. You know, you're so nice. And I'm like, I bet you wish you could marry somebody like your dad, like as a joke, like to be funny. And she was like, that's the grossest thing you've ever.
You're like, I find you completely disgusting.
She was just like, I was like, you just wish the boy. I said, you just wish the boys at school were as sweet as your dad.
So maybe we have to let Sonny off the hook for this one. Although he did say he was making his own bullets. So
I mean, for me, that first of all, that was a joke with the kid.
Yes,
like the fact that I can joke with my kid like that shows that maybe I do treat her like a princess.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's just,
but like, I'll say this: when your kids are guys that have like 17-month-old kids, or guys that have like 5-year-old kids, they really fucking think they have it all figured out. Like, God, this is what it is. This is the dad thing. You know, I'm a dad now. I'm going to fucking wear brown pants or something.
Yeah. I don't own any brown pants, so maybe that's what it is. I'm not a dad. I don't own any brown pants.
I don't own any brown pants, and I am a dad.
Well,
we wear mostly black pants, and I only wear cargo pants.
Yeah, so. I think cargo pants, they're either cargo or brown or both.
But they're cool, though. Cargo pants are cool. You got to see me at my new look, John. You're going to be so impressed.
Well, I can see your Antisocial Social Club shirt, which is pretty kick-ass for sure. It looks good.
I am pretty kick-ass. But so, like, dads at that point have had enough time to think they have it all figured out, and his attitude is going to change. Like, you're basically molding this kid's personality until they're 5. All of their social cues and stuff like that are coming from you until about the 4th grade. You know, They go to school and they do the school thing and they hang out, but mostly they just want to come and like hang out with you and do whatever, you know. You and me and my daughter watched wrestling or movies or horror movies and stuff like that. Like, that's the kind of stuff we've done. But then as they get older, they start to form their own personality, and you have to like figure out how to deal with them as humans. And I hope that Sonny fucking has gone through that thing.
Yeah, the interview was in 2006, so his daughters are 18 and 13 now.
Yeah,
so.
And either they hate his guts or, you know, he's chilled out. I think a lot of people chill out.
I think he's pretty chill. I feel like he's pretty chilled out.
Yeah, I don't know if he's chill, because it's hard to be chill and like, well, I mean, I guess if like you're still living a good life skating or whatever, if he's a skater, good for him. That's chill. I just don't know how you chill, you know? When like it feels, Christianity seems so pent up. Like, you don't do any bad stuff, John. You don't do any drugs.
No,
none of that shit.
I'm just a good boy.
Still have sex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess he does too, because he has kids now. But that is like really, that's like your one joy, or like watching movies or something. You know what I mean? I'm trying to say, I just got so confused with what I was saying. I'm trying to say
the circle of the metaphor got too round.
It did. It does. It happens, dude. I'm so fucking stoned right now. I had it in my mind, but I just think that like it would be really nice if he changed a little bit and more guys didn't act normal. But he just doesn't seem like a chill dude. I don't know what his chill would be. I guess
barbecuing, apparently.
Oh yeah, that is chill, dude.
That is pretty chill.
I learned how to smoke meat for the 2 years, over the 2 years after I got out of rehab, and said, it's probably a good idea not to do any drugs for at least like a little bit. You know,
yes.
That was my philosophy. But I learned how to smoke meat. Then.
That's a good. Yeah,
I can get why
if you can't smoke weed, you might as well smoke meat, I think is what they always say. Let's talk about some of the songs on the album. We were talking about kids. I want to talk about Youth of the Nation, because I
want to bring the lyrics up, because I truly, this is the first 6 times I heard this.
It's really bad. Because to me, like, so this is the thing that I don't quite understand is like, so P.O.D. is obviously, they're like a Christian band. They're a message band, you know, they're trying to deliver a message. But this song is very confusing to me. It feels very exploitative. Like, I think they were trying to go for like a vibe of, you know, hey, we want to bring like, how do you bring attention to school shootings, right? Like, it's a very weird thing to do a song about, where it's like, okay, we're going to tell a story about a kid who shot up a school. But like, there's no point to it. There's no message to the song. Like, even if you try to find a message, like if you look at the lyrics here, it says, you know, there's the part where it's like, you know, maybe this kid was reaching out for love, or maybe for a moment he forgot who he was, or maybe this kid just wanted to be hugged. Whatever it was, I know it's because we are the youth of the nation. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that lyric makes no sense. There's no resolution to that. Like, they're trying to say, like, okay, yeah, these kids are troubled. That's why they're shooting up the school. But it's just a weird, like, to me, it just feels like such an obvious, like, you know what? There's been some school shootings, and we're just going to do a song about it. We're going to have a youth choir. We're not really going to make a point. We're just going to kind of talk about it. And then that's it. We're done.
There's also like, even I have a somewhat more cynical reading even of that.
Okay.
This is a song that the government might use in like in like anti-school shooting ads or whatever, or like, you know, some of the, like, I think they saw this as a perfect thing for commercials.
Totally.
I guess that we are the youth of the nation. I think almost the other lyrics were, they figured that out, right? And they were like, this would fucking, somebody might buy this to do a commercial or something. And then they could backfill all the lyrics around that thing. Because that thing, the chorus of this song sounds like a marketing slogan.
Totally. Oh, 100%. And then especially like he does the call and response with the kids choir in the last chorus, where it's like, we are the youth of the nation. And you're like, oh my God. Like, I just can't. It's so funny because I do remember, like, this song came out. I've always been fascinated with school shootings. That's like the one. I'm not like a true crime guy, but that's like the one that has always interested me for whatever reason. I read the Columbine book that was really good by Dave Cullen, and no relation. But like,
okay, yeah, I see why you read that one.
Hey, no relation. But like, and like, I thought Bowling for Columbine was so cool back then, you know, and like, so I remember thinking this song was cool when I was younger, like being like, whoa, like P.O.D wrote this song about school shooting. It's so heartfelt. But like, when you're an adult and you look at it, it's like the lyrics, they literally are about nothing. Like they're just telling the story. It's almost like seeing like a movie about a school shooting or a drama episode about a school shooting in 3 minutes in a song, where it's just like, hey, like I woke up, I didn't know I was going to die today. Then it flips to the point of view of the shooter who's like, oh, I'm sad and troubled. I have no choice. I'm going to shoot these kids. And then it's just like, I don't know. It really rubbed me the wrong way, I have to say, because it just like coming at it as an adult, I was like, this is just, you don't care about any of this stuff. Like, this isn't, there's no point you're making here. Like you said, the only point you're making is you're thinking like, this is a really cool sing-along chorus and people are going to sing it. And it's like a cool thing to say. We are the youth of the nation. Like, they know most of their audiences are going to be kids. It's Christian kids who just want to chant it. Like, I don't know, man. It just fucking pissed me off. I have to say, I don't like it.
Well, there is a cheat that we have. I mean, so there comics or people who do comedic material and stuff like that. Because I'm not going to say I do comic stuff, and you're a stand up, right?
Yeah.
And like we are allowed to address that stuff. Like, I can just say it. I can say like school shootings are fucked up, and you know, here's the reasons why and stuff like that. They have to write like a poem about it,
right?
And I think to get to what you're saying, it feels like they wrote this because it felt like they needed a school shooting song,
right?
That song was like, hey, so I don't think any of this is sincere. I don't think the lyrics really are just a guy had an idea and he put it down. And I think the cynical part about it and the grossness of it is that it feels like somebody was writing something to listen to at like a parade after a school shooting or something. Yeah. I know you don't do parades for them, but like a community get together. Like,
it's like the idea that we play this in a somber fashion at a school assembly after a
vigil.
Yes,
you know, you get to the vigil and everybody's got the candles and shit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, in like a real powerful moment of like inspiration and just everybody gets together and they listen to Youth of the Nation and they do the Youth of the Nation part in the middle. Like, this really feels like, or maybe it feels like a song written for a movie, you know? It just doesn't feel like, it feels like a very crass commercial song in a genre where like there are a lot of those, but it wasn't something that the cool bands kind of, I guess Limp Bizkit did do. But again, that's being funny. You know what I mean? This is like a crass kind of jumping on a tragic event sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like Nookie and Faith are crass in another way, where they just knew those were going to be hits and they fucking made them to be hits, and they were just fucking hits and they're fun, you know? They're not tied to some other tragedy.
Yeah.
Happened.
Well, and like the video they're performing in front of a wall with student photos on the wall that were killed in school shootings, you know, just stuff like that where you're like, this is too over the top. Let's also talk. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to compare it to something though, like the band that did Runaway Train, Soul Asylum that did that. I always found that to be very tasteful, and I also found it to be like genuinely they were giving information, and the video was actual information.
Well, aren't there stories about how people were found after that video? I feel like
I think so. Yeah. And it's like that to me, and they played it on the radio and stuff. And it doesn't feel as crass as Youth of the Nation. It doesn't feel as weird to me as Youth of a Nation does.
Yeah, it
for
says,
some reason.
It says that according to whoever this person is, maybe it's the lead singer of Soul Asylum, 26 missing children were found after being featured in the video.
Yeah.
Which is like, I mean, that's crazy. There were 36 missing children. 26 of them were eventually found. I mean, that's crazy. And you're right. Like, it didn't feel like Runaway Train. Yeah, it felt like they really felt this issue, and they were like, how can we help this issue, you know? And then also they did 2 versions of the video, one for the US and one for the UK.
Yeah, and also the thing about that Runaway Train song is that like I guess I had something and now I lost it, John.
That's okay, it happens.
But I guess like fuck, it's gone. Daniel,
happens.
you're gonna have to do some editing this episode.
It's also, though, they're saying that some of the like missing children that were found, it was a bad scenario. And I mean, this is like, he says this is the singer, I think Tony K is he's the director of the music video, Tony K. And he says, guitarist Dan Murphy stated in an interview with Pasadena Weekly that some of the cases featured in the video had ended in tragedy. And I mean, this is like, some weren't the best scenarios. I met a fireman on the East Coast whose daughter was in the end of the video, and he'd been in a bitter custody battle with his wife over her. It turned out the girl hadn't run away, but was killed and buried in her backyard by her mother.
Ugh. Jesus. Fuck. Well, and it's also like they were just talking about runaways. Runaways was an issue.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that's something that
it was kind of like a lesson.
Happened.
It was like I remember hearing it. I mean, that was 94. I was 9 years old. I remember hearing it and seeing the video, and I was like scared as fuck. Like it legitimately made me scared to run away because it was a problem. It was people were like, oh yeah, I get mad at my parents and I run away. And they were like, hey, maybe don't run away because here's all these people who have gone missing because they ran away. And like still to this day, that song like twigs something in my memory. Like I don't like listening to it because I had this, because there's a scene in the video where there's these like, there's a van pulls over and the back door of the van opens up and like 2 guys get out of the van and they like kidnap a girl on the side of the road and throw her in the van. And like that I was like, holy fuck. Cause that was like literally everything I had a fear about as a kid. I was like, that shit happens. Holy fuck. So now like I still to this day, I hear those opening chords and I'm like, I can't do this song. But you're right. It did feel helpful. Like, I think that's a good way of framing it too, where like I read the lyrics of the song and I'm like, who is this for? Like, this isn't helping anyone. There's no message to this song. There's not even it seems like he's about to say like, hey, you know, maybe you should just be nice and respectful to everybody because you never know, they might shoot you. But he doesn't even quite get there because the lyrics are all just kind of like, oh, who really knows why these kids do this? And what, though it seems like sometimes the world just doesn't make sense and I wish it made more sense. And you're like, what is this? I don't understand what this is about. I also don't understand the reggae song on this album.
I want to talk about Boom. Here comes the boom.
Sure.
Ready or not.
Here comes the boys from the South.
I will say this. That's one of the top nu metal songs, I think.
Boom? Boom's a classic.
Yeah. Boom is their highest charter, I think. Maybe. No, there's a movie named after Boom. So I think that's
Kevin James was like, I'll just call a movie this P.O.D. song from 10 years ago. It's not even
a song, it's a lyric.
A lyric from the song, you're right, yeah.
Chorus.
The song is not called Here Comes the Boom. Yeah, you're right.
But like I that song's you gotta put that in the top 15, I think. You gotta put that in the top 15 songs there. That is a good one. And I was like really enjoying it.
Right. Because it does have that really cool pre-chorus where it's like, but it's all right. It's all right. I see you smile, I see you laughing at me, but it's all right. It's all right. Boom. Here, like it does have that cool, like it kind of goes like rap metal to kind of like a nice melodic pre-chorus, and the chorus is just like, hell yeah, catchy as shit.
Yeah, and I think Alive is good.
I do too. I think Alive is a good song. And Set It Off, like really this is like to me, this is like a very classic front-loaded nu metal album. Like Limp Bizkit did it too. Like Linkin Park, you know, it was very much of that time period where you just jam all your hits, because this album is 53 minutes long, which is absurd. It's so much song. You don't need this. Like you could cut 6 songs on this album, 7 songs, and it wouldn't make a difference. Like it makes no sense. But it is a very front-loaded album. Like to me, Set It Off is like a good opener. And it's called Set It Off, so it's got that kind of, it's like Korn having It's On as the start of Follow the Leader. It's just a kind of cool, like, yeah, let's get into it. And then Alive is good, Boom is good, Youth of the Nation isn't great, but people did love it. I think Satellite is a great song, and then everything after that is like, holy shit. Starting with Ridiculous, which is it the worst song that's ever been on a nu metal album? I mean, it's got to be up there.
Well, if we're talking about the ones we've done, then it's undoubtedly the worst song. I mean, okay, here's a good question. What was shittier, though? The back half of P.O.D. or the back half of Slipknot? Because we both hated the back half of Slipknot. I'm going to have a couple of these.
To me, it's the back half of P.O.D. Like, to me, none of the songs in the back half of P.O.D. are good. Like, The Messenger is okay. And Anything Right is okay. And the one thing I love about Anything Right is that no one would know that Christian from Blindside's last name is Lindskog. So instead of crediting him as featuring Christian Lindskog, it literally says when the album is playing on your car radio, featuring Christian from Blindside. Which is so funny to me, because I'm just imagining like Korn releasing Chi or whatever, and it's like featuring Chino from Deftones. Like it would never, like, it's so funny to me.
They're such uncool guys.
They're so uncool. But yeah, like Anything Right's like okay, you could keep it if you really wanted to. Ghetto is awful. Masterpiece.
I want to talk about Ghetto a little bit.
Masterpiece too. Conspiracy's awful. Without Jaw Nothing is in the running as one of the worst songs I've ever heard.
That's a hard one too. That one I want to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, no, we're going to get there. So let's talk about this back. Because to me, the back half of Slipknot, I don't love it, but there was some good tracks on there. And I talked about the one track in particular where it had the kind of part in the song. I can't remember which song it was, but it had the part that kind of like informed where Slipknot sound was going. Whereas like P.O.D., there's nothing here worth keeping really. Like you could easily make the case that this is like, maybe you keep Anything Right, or The Messenger, or both, and you have a 6 or 7 song album, and you're done. You don't need anything else. So let's start with Ridiculous.
Well, let me also, you were very hard on System of a Down. If I remember correctly, you said I hate them, and I think that
I did not say I hate System of a Down.
You said the album sucks. You said that their most popular, praised, and probably their best album was not good.
I just said it hasn't held up. I wouldn't say it's held up. And I did admit that it still has 3 or 4 amazing songs on it, which you can't say about a lot of albums.
Yeah. So does this album have more hits Does Toxicity have more hits than this album to you? Because this album seems like it means a lot more to you than it could have to me.
Yes, this album means more to me than it did to you for sure. What I would say, though, is I would kind of go back to our earlier argument in that I think this album has the same number of kind of like undeniable hits as far as like Alive, Boom, Youth of the Nation. They were also had 3 Grammy nominations, which a lot of the bands we're looking at have none of those. Not the Grammys don't mean anything, but I'm just saying in terms of like
song?
So the it was really weird. So they were nominated for Alive was nominated for Best Hard Rock Performance at the 2002 Grammys. And then Youth of the Nation, despite being from the same album, I guess because of when it was released as a single, was nominated for Best Hard Rock Performance at the 2003 Grammys. And then Portrait, the last song on the album, was nominated for Best Metal Performance at the 2003 Grammys, which is weird because Portrait's like a ballad and it wasn't released as a single.
They tend to pick a fucking song.
Yeah, it's very weird.
They like to pick a song that's not representative of anything else on the album. That's what Elite is.
But what I would say is that I would say that this album has this kind of the same number of undeniable hits, like System of a Down, Toxicity had Toxicity, Chop Suey, Aerials.
Oh, that's going to make people so mad. Though.
But no. But what I'm going to say is that I think you have to give more credit to System of a Down because I think they're more unique singles and they're more influential. Like like we were saying, I don't think anyone was heard Alive and was like, I want my band to sound like that. Whereas I think System of a Down spawned people who tried to do that kind of like freako kind of, I don't even know what you would call their music.
Freako music. Freako metal.
Yeah, freako metal. So that to me is like, so for me, definitely Toxicity is a better album than P.O.D. Satellite. I just think System of a Down, it just hasn't aged super well, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a great album when it came out. Does that make sense?
I guess it does. Yeah. I mean,
this album is terrible. Like overall, this album is bad. You can't compare this album to Toxicity. Yeah, overall, Toxicity is a much better album.
I think on this album, I tolerated 2 songs is how I would say it. Like
Alive and
Boom. I got Set It Off wasn't too bad. So I'm fine with that. But Ridiculous is the one you wanted to talk about. And
it's just so bad. It's just so bad. And I don't understand the reggae thing because they're like Mexican American. I don't really understand the whole like Rastafarian, like the messenger and without jaw, nothing. Like you're not Jamaican. You're not doing reggae music. What is happening?
So Ika Mouse is a very famous reggae musician.
Yes,
it looks like. I didn't know that. I thought he was just a guy from around.
I thought he was like a white guy from San Diego that they were just like, oh yeah, this guy does reggae sometimes. He plays hacky sack. But then Ika Mouse
seems cool.
No, he's not cool though, because in 2008 he was arrested on charges of rape and narcotic possession. He fled the United States and an arrest warrant with $1 million bond was issued. These charges were filed in North Carolina after a performance at the Porto restaurant. He failed to appear at the first hearing and was given a failure to appear charge and bond was set. In November 2012, he was found in Paraguay without a proper visa and was extradited to the U.S. He was initially charged with felony rape, felony kidnapping, felony cocaine charges, and misdemeanor relating to possession of marijuana. In July 2013, he was released after a plea agreement, having pleaded no contest to misdemeanor charges for assault on a female and an attempted crime against nature, with his time already spent in prison covering his sentence.
Okay.
So Ika Mouse, I can hate on this song even further. But again,
it's going to be great now.
It is.
I hate this song.
It is a very weird thing to me that you get this guy who, from all accounts, is like a dance hall legend. You get HR from Bad Brains, and those 2 songs are like 2 of the worst things I've ever heard. Like, how are you convincing fucking HR from Bad Brains to be on your album if you're P.O.D, and how are you convincing him to do a song called Without Jaw Nothing that is horrible?
I know. That was like one of the hardest things for me. Now, I'm not a Bad Brains guy.
Me
I
neither.
barely listen to them, but I respect them.
You have no
because other
choice.
people do.
You have to respect them.
Yeah, and to make these listeners to make me shit on a song with HR from Bad Brains on it seems very rude. But that song fucking sucks. But Ridiculous is a bad in a way that is interesting, at least. Like, I would be mortified if I was driving around with somebody and that song played, like off of a playlist or something on my phone, or like I would be so embarrassed if somebody thought I liked that song. That, like, I don't even know how it was made. Like nobody in the room was like, "Oh boy, this is." I mean, it's called Ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me. Is like you've got these first 6 songs. All of them are about God. I mean, maybe not "Here Comes the Boom," but all of them are about God, in some way, and they're very like uplifting new metal. Then out of nowhere, they're like, "Yeah, let's just throw in this like slinky reggae track with like some dance hall guy who I guess is famous, but like no one would have known." Like
no,
if you're like,
I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm like a 16-year-old P.O.D. fan. There's no way I'm like, holy shit, Ika Mouse is on this bad boy. That's unbelievable.
Well, they probably thought. I think the thought process behind that is like P.O.D. is like, I'm gonna get Ika Mouse in front of a bigger audience.
Yes, yeah, for sure. They obviously like him. I mean, they obviously like reggae, right? I mean, that's got to be the whole thing. But it's like, again, I don't know. I'm so confused. Like, yeah, I don't know who it's for. It makes no sense to me.
Yes,
like to
that's
me,
what I'm saying.
Like, I would say, like, here you like to make very outlandish musical comparisons to classic rock and new metal, which I love. Here's mine. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go the opposite time direction. It's like when Bon Iver got together with Kanye. And at first you'd think like that, why? What is going on? Why would Kanye want Bon Iver on an album? Except then you hear it and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And it's the greatest thing I've ever heard. And it makes perfect sense. But like, I think in a way it was like Kanye was just like, I love Bon Iver's music. I love what he's doing. I love his voice. I sell millions and millions more copies than he does. Let's get him on here, And then of course, and then he wins the Best New Artist Grammy after that for his like technically 3rd album, like, all that stuff. So to me, it's kind of like, yeah, it's probably like that. Like they're just a big Ika Mouse fan. They're like, hey, this is cool. We've got Atlantic is footing the bill for this record. Let's fucking bring this guy in. That's like kind of our hero. And not that Bon Iver was Kanye's hero, but you know what I mean? It totally feels like that kind of like, oh, we just love this dude. Let's get him in here. And then it's terrible. Yeah. But then that's what I mean. Like, how do you get these guys in a room? Like, they play this song for him and he's like, what the fuck? Am I really about to take $100,000 off these guys to sing on this fucking piece of shit?
Well, that's the fucking thing. Who knows? You're right. He did it for a payday, and they did it to try to get who was going to fucking pick Ika Mouse's next album up from the P.O.D. audience, and who in Ika Mouse's audience was going to pick up the P.O.D. album.
Yeah, no one.
This was a song that was designed to be skipped.
For sure.
They never expected anybody to make it all the way through this song,
no
without
chance.
Jaw.
Yeah, no chance.
You don't mix reggae with new metal. That's offensive. The other stuff is fine. The mixing reggae with new metal is like, I don't want to hear that.
I know. And then without Jaw, nothing is like they kind of try and do the sort of like speed punk that like Bad Brains does, which is also super weird and I don't understand. Like that's the other part that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, okay, we love Bad Brains. HR actually agreed to do a track with us. Let's do not the thing we're good at, but we'll just try and do like kind of what sounds like a shitty Bad Brains cover. And then I'm just, oh man, this is pissing me off.
I know. Well, you're a guy and I'm a guy who likes to get people that we admire involved in, like, I like to get people that I admire in projects.
Yeah,
and
of
work
course,
with them
of course,
and do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's how this happened. We admired each other when you came on Block Party and you started talking about new metal. I was like, I admire this man. Let's do a podcast together.
Yeah. That really is how this stuff happens, though. You know, you want to work with somebody and you have like, you know, different ideas maybe about how things are supposed to be. But like, I want to work with somebody that's going to, you know, also be accepted probably by a lot of my audience, or like even just somebody that it's interesting that I'm doing something with them.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to make it as good for both of us as possible.
Totally.
And if I was like getting Bon Iver, or if I was I'd eke a mouse on my thing, I guess my impulse would be to do something that they do. Their impulse is that. My impulse is to fit them into my thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Go like, yeah, this is for our audience. Like, presumably most people are going to be listening to this because they like us. So let's do, and that's what Kanye did with Bon Iver, right? He was like, okay, I see a way that I can fit him into what I'm doing, and I think people will like the way this sounds. And of course they did. It sounded amazing. And I agree with you, right? It's like, it wouldn't make any sense. Like, you guys always tour with other podcasts. It wouldn't make sense for you to, you know, bring out a podcast that like has differing political views from you or whatever, and then just be like, yeah, you guys just go on before us and you just talk about how capitalism rules and you love it and whatever. And then we'll just come out. Like, I could see you doing that, but you would want to frame it in like a debate or like a way of, you know, in a way where you're like, okay, this is what would be interesting to our audience. You wouldn't just be like, you wouldn't just stick some like libertarian podcast up in front of your audience with no explanation or anything and just be like, hey, here they are. You know what, like, this podcast is pretty funny. You won't agree with anything they're saying, but it's pretty funny, so like you should listen to these guys, and then we're going to come out and do something totally different. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That's what's happening here, right? It's like, we're just going to play a reggae song now. We don't do that. It's nothing we do at all, but like, we're just going to give it to you. There's not going to be an explanation for it. Here it is. Enjoy it. And you're like, right, well, I don't enjoy this. I hate this.
Yeah. You should be glad we're together. It's like, nobody is.
No one's glad.
If I was an Eka Mouse fan, I'd be like, this motherfucker's doing something with P.O.D. You know what I mean? Well, I would be embarrassed by that.
If you were an Eka Mouse fan, you'd be like, who's P.O.D?
So the HR and the HR one is really tragic, because I think maybe even what happened was they got very nervous about doing a song with him, and then they listened to a lot of Bad Brains, and they're like, let's do a Bad Brain song instead of doing a P.O.D. song with HR in it, you know?
Totally.
Which would have been an interesting song. That could have been interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. And it is just such a weird thing. Do you want to, we've got to wrap this up. You want to say something about Ghetto before we wrap it, or are you good?
Ghetto is bad, I think.
Truly,
I mean,
truly bad, because he just out of nowhere starts screaming, the whole world is a ghetto.
Yes. And it like shook me, because I told you in our text messages that this was what's the word, like a box fan. It's the music equivalent of a fucking box fan. It's very generic, so you can lull yourself into like not giving a shit. Yeah,
it's white noise. You put it on when you go to sleep, and you're like, oh yeah, this sounds like I just sleep this.
Yeah, and like, so it stunk. And then Ghetto, this guy just starts screaming, the world is a ghetto, the world is a ghetto. And I started paying attention immediately. So maybe that was part of
that was his strategy. He's like, we're gonna wake these guys up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we always rate the album with our tweet defense score. So this is if someone tweeted at you to say that they didn't like this album, how many tweets you would do to defend this album. Bryan, what is your score? How many tweets would you do to defend this if someone said it was bad?
Fucking, and you know what, I do too, because I think I would say something like, you know, a lot of people like this. Right. That's one, and then number two is like, I don't give a shit. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say 2 as well, because I think I would be like, someone might be like, P.O.D. sucks, and then I would be like, yeah, but they did kind of have a couple of bangers though, and then they'd be like, no, they didn't. I'd be like, and then I would link the video to Satellite or Alive, and I'd be like, yeah, you got to agree this does kind of go in a little bit if you're a new metal fan. So, but yeah, you're not going deep on a POD defense. We're not on a Christian music message board. We don't have to. We don't have to do that. So that is our. So we both obviously did not care for this album. It's very, very low rated.